Hello and welcome everyone, it is me, the also known as the Pod Duelist, back for you in Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. And after that absolutely horrendous time of dropping 2 ranks in the span of like a couple of days, I'm back in Diamond 3, which is a good thing. And just like last time, we're going to take a look at a couple of replays that I have saved from that, way back here. Been on I guess Old Faithful, you could call it again. No Vernisivs this time. But maybe, I'll revisit that for like a future episode. Because I do really like those cards. But with that, let's, get into some replays and see how I did. Now, these are all going to be mainly from Diamond 4. So definitely nothing that propels me into the next rank. This first one here is me going second into Sword Soul. But with that droplet in hand, I think you can all already tell where this is going. Opponent is going through very normal Sword Soul stuff, If my girl and Moye were both drowning, you could catch me at my girl's funeral, revealing another horror in my hand to make a Chi-Jiao, to draw one and add a long one to my hand. Or in this case, a Tire must already have long one in hand, and there he is, just cutting the Adora to summon the long one, make a token, and summon out not Baron, but Chi-Jing long one. Interesting choice here, I guess, but granted, this could very well be someone who has, just recently picked up Sword Soul. You see me just like, no questions asked, I don't take prisoners here. Firing a Forbidden Droplet for Metal Silver Saffron, mainly because that way I do have a better converter line by normal summoning this remote, and if it gets hand trapped. If I would have, discarded a remote in here because I want to kind of retain the reactor for Redox maybe later, my options would have been quite limited, and I would have had to get fairly lucky off that telephone that I could have summoned this way. Saffron has the incredible opportunity here to just grab me back Remoten, making a Linkuriboh here. Fairly standard stuff to not only get a Morphtronic into the graveyard for potential extension with Remoten here, because we can always grab another name, but also in general to get that Reacton live. From here on out, we can put a Redox on the board and start extending, because Redox and Telephone make the Excels from Crusaders Dragon. And Excels from Crusaders is easily able to bring back the Telephone that we just use. Opponent decides to kind of, get his toggles and triggers out of the way here, so that he's not getting annoyed at like every second opportunity. Probably just hoping that there is no OTK coming. Telephone hits the board, rolls a 1, puts Saffron on the board, and I think with 1 and 8, we all know where this is going. Power Tool, Braver Dragon hits the board. Equipping all 3 equips, the one from the grave and 2 left in the deck. Hitting, a 2 off a Saffron here. Ramon's crazy here, absolutely. Making probably one of my favorite Link 2s recently. I still cannot get over how, it's not in terms of like how impactful Orsa is, but just like how nice it is to have this like low commitment Link 2 to make without just like throwing a Nightmare Phoenix against the wall and seeing what sticks. Like in a lot of cases it didn't really matter, but I feel like Orsa just like fits that, Link 2 space a lot better. And oh, how nice of my opponent, put an Earth into the grave at Hara, just so happens to be an Earth monster. Just, trying to get like an additional card here out of the smartphone. Potential unicorn discard, but I don't think that'll be too relevant, as I do have, I think, quite a couple attributes here in Graveyard. For an access code talker to banish, which I do make here, and I still have the pop off of Baron after all. So we go access code banish the unicorn, pop the Chi-Jing long one, access code banish Orsa, pop the Chi-Jiao, and then we can go Baron de Fleur for the Shuna that is left on the board, and that is game. really, like, kind of shows what I like about Forbidden Droplet in this deck specifically. You do have very favorable interactions with the graveyard. Aside from, you know, I didn't do it the fancy way here, but potentially also, you know, sending stuff that is on-field resolving for the cost, and then, you know, still getting effects of potentially dodging a targeted negation. Kind of makes me really like that card, especially because it's also not bad to draw turn 1. But after this kind of quick one, we'll get into a real a real, you know, battle in the mud against Runic Stun. God, I'm so thankful for coffee. Anyways, this is, as mentioned earlier, against Runic Stun, which is why I am going to hit the speed up button real quick here. Not trying to waste time unnecessarily, going for a converter for the remote here that I stack back on top. Was maybe hoping for like a telephone here, but you can't always get everything. Making an Author here with the Link Reborn, the remote and back left on the field, hoping to hit something off a smartphone, and you know, any kind of Morphtronic name does it here because they're all Earth discards for the Redox. I do discard Redox and Saffron here for summon off Redox from the graveyard. To make an Exhaust Synchro Stardust, which can bring back Morphtronic Smartphone after I make it, and that way I can make a Braver, Dragon Braver equips a couple cards here, putting another Smartphone on the board, grabbing another card from the deck. I did set that call by a bit too early maybe, but this way I'm at least chilling on Braver, Called By, and an Ash Blossom, which I think is, you know, a decent point to be. I do have a Telephone in hand, which is kind of nice. Good follow-up. Opponent has to fire 2 Runics into the Braver here, because otherwise not really getting over a Braver in a Runic deck, because all of these things target. Rivalry of Warlords hits the board. I'm kind of like, okay, you know, I can do a bit of stuff under a Machine Lock, but then I get called by on the Gamer activation. Summoning back the Redox here, I just wanted to, you know, try and apply some pressure. Because Redox is fairly sizable, at least beats over something like a Barrier Statue or a Fossil Diner that my opponent is probably playing. So, you know, hoping I can get some damage in here. But Grave of the Super Ancient Organism comes down in that moment. Shoutouts Farfa for popularizing that card. Random raging battle stuff that isn't Morphtronic support. Who could have guessed? And yeah, this is just about what you would expect from, you know, a Runic Stun matchup. You know, a lot of sitting in front of continuous cards. You know, we've almost got all pieces of the puzzle assembled here, you know. Even if most of these are limited by now. Mostly just like hoping and waiting for a good draw. Mainly the Harpy's Feather Duster, but this guy is also pretty good. Tributing off here the Redox and the Ash, even getting to add a Reactant, deck thinning further, which is, you know, kind of nice. I do appreciate that, as that does get me closer to the Harpy's Feather Duster that is still somewhere in my deck. Flipping over the Fenrir here, getting to, you know, kind of start picking apart this board. I decided to get rid of the Dimension Fissure first, mainly to get my Forbidden Droplets live again, because these have to send to the graveyard for cost. Decide to droplet the Hugin here. Locks his EMZ. I do get a Fenrir trigger. I feel pretty good about this kind of, you know, picking apart the floodgates one by one with a Fenrir. So, you know, no complaints on my part here. Putting this Smartphone on the board, trying to dig for a Morphtronic name. Even getting to beat over a monster with Smartphone by combat. Fenrir outs another floodgate, punches for 24 in. Putting this Telephone on the board in main 2. Because I, you know, now can finally start having more monster types on the board than, you know, just machines. A Unicorn trying to spin this last mystery back row. I just want to see what it is mainly. But I do feel pretty good about this follow-up turn. Opponent has 3 cards in hand. I have an Ash for like a potential fountain they could have. I have a Droplet for, you know, another Hugin trying to get a fountain. They just set a monster here and give it over back to me. I put a Telephone on the board, resolve that basically for, you know, the formality of it, to not lose the value before I commit into an access code talker, popping a set Fossil Diner. Hey, nice try, buddy. And this way, this is game. In general, yeah, it was a game of all time. I could have also, you know, kind of hoped to, you know, find that Feather Duster, but Fenrir just dealing cleanly with a lot of individual floodgates there. absolutely putting in work, showing why this card is rightfully limited and probably should also be limited in the TCG in some capacity. Because having, multiples of that, it's an incredibly powerful staple with a lot of utility to it. I definitely doubted him. As mentioned in that Bandless discussion, you should maybe check that out if you haven't already. But yeah, just absolutely crazy card dealing with all of those floodgates. But with that, we'll move into a last game that is, a bit of a classic. We'll go first, make a big board. This was, funnily enough, the rank up game that I played back up to Diamond 3. Going first here, opening Gamer Plus, like any of the fonts, is crazy. Incredible potential just off of those 2 cards. Summoning the Telephone here in defense because I want to try and set up the graveyard maybe in a way where I do have like a bit more stuff to work with. I'm not wanting to, get that Southbound out of my hand just yet, so that repair unit that I can search later is still live. After I grab it off a Power to Dragon, a bit of like me being like a brain AFK and just dumping a Converter here for like 0 reason. Don't do this. Going for the repair unit, discarding Southbound, summoning back the Telephone for Southbound. Name a more iconic duo. I'll wait. Kind of really what I like about the way the deck can work at the moment. You're not as dependent on machine duplication anymore because you can kind of use Telephone as a substitute for that alliance. Kind of re-summoning, Southbounds over and over again in a turn to get multiple uses out of Southbound, to grab more guys out of the deck and get more material on the board. Just basically walking through a fairly straightforward line here. Telephone for Telephone here. Once or twice you'd have to go for, the Troll Spell line. For Excelsior Crusaders brings back this Telephone. I can freely Telephone here for Southbound again before I turn the now spent Telephone and Excelsior Crusaders into another power tool, Braver Dragon. I think we're 3 for 3 today with, Braver hitting the board in these replays. Telephone triggering here again, going for a Telephone. And after I've deck thinned with the Braver successfully for 3 more cards, I decide to fire the Southbound before I miss. And turn all 3 of these into an Appaloosa. I was kind of hoping for this to maybe turn out a bit better, but sometimes it is what it is. We are, after all, working off of a lot of random chance here. Now, I do not fire the Southbound immediately because I want to do a funny. I do stack the Southbound Telephone back on top with the Converter pulling out a Remote, because this way I get a guaranteed hit on the Telephone after, putting it back on top, of course, because that way I can guarantee the Southbound. Fairly obvious stuff, I'd say, but it felt good in the moment. Anyways, turning a, simple Remote and Southbound into Earphone, and then with the leftover Telephone into a Naturia Beast. Getting Remote back on the board, which is absolutely huge, which is the moment where I decide to plop down Redux on the board, banishing the Excelsior Crusaders and a Gadget Gamer for it to make a Baron de Fleur. Incredible endboard piece, very easy to make. Did you know this got put into Duel Links, out of all things? I mean, luckily it's locked behind a skill apparently, but it's kind of crazy to think that Baron is in Duel Links. But yeah, turning the Smartphone and Telephone that I still have left on the board here into an IP Masquerader for a, potential line into Unicorn, equipping the Earphone, setting the Droplet face down. And after all this nonsense, my opponent will look at the board and kind of say, you got this one, buddy. I'll give you the rank up. I think you deserved it. We can check the deck later. But yeah, it's rough. Opening 0 hand traps, and this was a lot of gas to cook with. So yeah, I guess we'll check all of these actually. This was the first deck I played against. This is so fairly, I'd say, based on the initial starter deck. Supplemented with some staples in between, but nothing really revolutionary. I don't know. Can I even show this on YouTube? Anyone give me like a all clear on this? Yeah, it's Onyx done. And the last game that I showed you guys was against Tielemans, apparently still strongest. even without Merly. Yeah, you know, running like the small cash tier engine because you need the raid source for like the tier cache and everything. But yeah, otherwise, oh. Okay, Panzer Dragon as like a super poly target could have been kinda yikes, but luckily enough, I did not end on a dragon. Outside of that, as you know, mentioned at the start, I was back on this. I think I've said it like a million times by now, but I really like this list. I like how it feels, I like how it plays. And I've kinda, you know, it was nice to fall back on this. I did drop a whole lot of games on the Vernosif variant, mainly because probably I was, you know, in a bit of a hurry, in a bit of a rush to, you know, just try and get some games together, but it just was not meant to be. And this felt somewhat good, even if a lot of it was, yeah, it's sometimes Yu-Gi-Oh's that way, where you go first, you go all the way, and then it's kind of over. But even going second, Droplet does put in a lot of work, as that one game showed. And sometimes you can even make it out alive out of a literal hellhole that is Runic Stun. But yeah, that being said, I would like to thank you guys very much for watching and sticking around with the channel, just as always. I hope that I can have a bit more time to work on videos in the upcoming weeks, even if I'm kind of still dealing with a bunch of personal stuff in the background. So do not expect everything to go back to how things used to be immediately, but I hope that stuff clears up sooner rather than later, because I really enjoy doing this. A lot of the interaction with you guys is always a lot of fun, and I do appreciate every single one of you. But with all that being said, here's to you before I drink another sip of coffee. And with that be all of the way, I will thank you guys very much for watching, and I will be seeing you guys again next time. But until then, goodbye.